Welcome to Shine Together, a podcast where Edmonton's brightest minds come together to share ideas, collaborate, and inspire. What makes a city great is its people, and this podcast is all about bringing them together. So let's dive into meaningful conversations and make our
Hi, I'm
city
Dr. Omar
shine
Mohammad,
greater
and I'm running
together.
for mayor in the next municipal election here in Edmonton, Alberta. Welcome to Shine Together, an Edmonton podcast where one expert Edmontonian takes the host chair and another expert Edmontonian takes the guest chair. And I get the honor, privilege of witnessing, listening, and learning and growing alongside both of you. Today we're joined by Abdullah Saleh, a Pediatric General Surgeon at the University of Alberta, a global health innovator, and a social entrepreneur. As the co-founder of Innovative Canadians for Change, he has developed sustainable technology-driven solutions that have improved healthcare, water, sanitation, and trauma prevention for hundreds of thousands worldwide. Now, he's bringing that same innovative mindset to Edmonton, forming a collaborative group to tackle local challenges through problem solving. From global impact to local change, we're excited to hear his insights. Dr. Saleh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Omar. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And our host, Dr. Rahman, is a pediatric ER physician, advocate, and community builder with a passion for making a difference. Having called Edmonton home for 20 years, she's led initiatives like the One Ummah, One Eid gift program, the Edmonton Volunteer Society, and Findings, a medical writing blog. She champions high-risk youth women in medicine and global humanitarian efforts, all while serving as VP of IFSAA. With a heart for justice, a drive for change, and a love for creativity, and Taylor Swift. Dr. Rahman brings energy, insights, and fresh perspectives to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here today. I hope we shine brighter together. Dr. Rahman, the show is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. It's very awkward to hear about yourself in third person like that. My daughter wrote that for me.
Yeah, well, she obviously has you very high in her eyes.
I wrote that and I practiced that last night. Just to let you guys know I was doing that. My kids were asking me what I was doing, and
okay.
So how kids? We all work with kids,
Yeah.
but so I
The
did
one I
practice
sent
it.
you, my daughter's wrote. So it's embarrassing, right, to hear about yourself like that. It's not in our culture to do something like this and act like it's like this. It's like the opposite, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
We want to do big
I
things
like it.
and
I like when
be
people
swell.
brag
Yeah.
about me just in general.
Well, thank
but,
you.
Thank
Thank you.
so
That
much
was
for being
really
here.
nice introduction. Thank you so much.
Very good.
It's funny seeing you outside the hospital.
I know, right? And usually it's over a patient or like...
and we just kind of give each other the hey salam.
Yeah. Yeah.
How you feeling today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good.
A little bit sleep deprived.
Are you?
Yeah, but
Newborn?
what else is new? Yeah, have a newborn at home and was post-call, but
Oh my
otherwise, just
goodness.
the usual.
And made time for us.
Well, wouldn't miss this.
Very good.
Superstar.
I know what that's like. 4 children myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One, Henry.
Henry,
Yeah, very
exactly.
good. Well, welcome, Henry. I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah, I wish he could have been here, but I don't think we would have gone through the podcast with him. Yeah.
Very good.
Today is actually my son's 10th birthday.
Happy birthday.
So happy birthday to him.
What's your son's name?
Laith.
Laith. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
good name.
It's easy, those names that are like Laith, rhymes with faith.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah,
But
we
still
consider
has some
naming ours
some
Laith.
heritage in it, right?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
thought about naming him Laith, so
Yeah.
that
oh,
was
that's
very good.
nice.
It's a good
Henry's
name.
so cute.
Yeah.
So Saleh, Abdullah, please tell me more about yourself. Like you've had such a rich, I heard a little bit before about your past and your such amazing experiences. Tell us why charity work is important to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think having grown up in a lot of different contexts and have lived both on the side of having a comfortable life and being at the kind of closer to the poverty line or below the poverty line, living in conflict and living in very secure areas. I think it's been a very eye-opening experience. I was born in Iraq, moved around quite a bit. We lived in France when I was young, moved back to Iraq after the war. We escaped, went to Malaysia and lived there for a while before immigrating to Canada. Came to Calgary first, and then I moved to Edmonton, and I've been happy to call Edmonton home since 2006, where I did my medical school, surgery training, and then for a short hiatus to Ontario for my ped surgery fellowship, then moved back here in 2017. I think that those experiences have really tried to give me a perspective, but I think really maybe inadvertently it's led me to be very unsettled and easy about just sitting and watching the challenges of the world just get more and more complex without trying to take an active stab at improving that, both on the medical side, the clinical side, the innovation side. But I think most importantly, in trying to advocate for the vulnerable, the voiceless, the people that we could have been had we not come here to Canada and had this opportunity. Right. And I think that that's truly like the opportunity that we have. Omar, I know you're running for mayor, building on such an important perspective and experience that you've had. Right. But I think being here, now I think you want to make this place so much, you want to give back to this place so much because you care about it and it's given you so much.
Absolutely. And it's very nice to hear people's perspectives as to why you give back. I always have this principle: when you know better, you do better. And both of you guys are here on the show because I know you guys give back. And, I want to hear your story. And I'm always curious as to what is it in you that makes you do it. And I've actually asked myself, I know that you get so fulfilled when you do something good, that feeling you get. Yeah. But, when you keep continuing to do it, I meet people like you that generally just keep going and going and going. And you guys have done it for years. It's very, very refreshing. And, just to hear and share our stories as to what made us come together. So thank you for that, Dr. Abdullah.
It's addictive, right? It's addictive.
I'm going to turn that back to you. I know I'm not the host of the show, but I'm trying to bring people together and allow them to, and I'm trying to hear to learn. But I do have a question in that same spirit of, what makes you give back? And I know you've given back so much, and looking at your bio, and I have to shorten bios for podcasts in general, but what is it in you that makes you want to give back and make the world a better place, or our city a better place?
Honestly, I don't look at it as if I'm giving back. It's just part of who I am. My parents, growing up, I was actually born in Hamilton, grew up in the U.S., came to Canada, back to Canada, I should say, which the Americans always make sure I know that I'm originally Canadian. It was always part of my childhood. My mom always was doing stuff for the community, and I just think it's so, the satisfaction you get and the contentment you get and the gratefulness you feel is unmatched by anything else, anything material. We'll never touch that.
I know what you're feeling. So that hearing that from somebody like you that gives back so much, I always wish that for my children, that they can feel this and be in this situation because of how rewarding, giving back is.
I wish we could give more. I mean, I do the best I can, but I definitely wish I could do more.
Absolutely. And
it comes from a gratefulness to God, honestly, because when you are given a lot, we have a great responsibility.
So that's sorry for interrupting your show, but it's very good to get context as to the nature. And I always wonder, anybody that I see gives back, what actually drives them to do that, just so they can learn. But sorry, I'll give you back your show.
Don't apologize.
Dr.
We're
Rahman.
just chatting. I mean, every time you do one thing, there always is a list of things that follow. You know that. It's like a domino, right? That old tale sign of do one good deed and never goes unpunished. It is true. Yeah. Right?
So true. I think you start something, and I think the challenge is like understanding what is like the motivation behind doing something, and then your commitment to what the end goal is. Because it's very easy. Like, I mean, I'll use a medical example. It's quite easy to go and do what we do for work somewhere else and then leave. Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily exact the change or create the lasting impact that we necessarily want to see here or elsewhere. And so then how do you look at it from a slightly more nuanced, or accept that situations are more complex? Like if we're talking about food, people are not hungry just because they don't have food. Food security is a much more complex problem than that. So me standing outside handing out hamburgers won't necessarily fix the problem, or handing out sandwiches or handing out anything won't fix that problem without thinking about what's the cause behind that, what's the system level issue. Right. So then it always makes me wonder, like, at what level is my responsibility if I want to create an impact? Is my responsibility at the surface level? Or if I've decided that this is something I want to change, now am I like committed to taking on the whole journey of both self-discovery, which I think what a lot of this podcast is about, is the like knowing better and doing better by understanding more. But the more you understand, it's like what you're getting at. I think we have, then suddenly we know more of the problem, and then it's the onus is on you now. Do you want to continue, or are you okay with staying at the superficial level of giving, or superficial level of acting, with knowing that it might not necessarily change anything long term? And I think that to me is always this like wrestling in my mind, because we're busy, we have a life, we have families, we have responsibilities and all that. Where does your responsibility stop? Right. And can you actually stop if you're in this field? And I think sometimes that's what my experience has been, is just this ever expanding complexity and interlinked thing. And suddenly you're like,
Yeah.
it's not about just overseas. These problems are the same here. And I think this is what we saw during COVID.
Absolutely.
You see a pandemic at that level, suddenly people realize maybe that the problems elsewhere are no longer just separate from them. And there's no us and them. It's really all us. And then it becomes a little bit less about the philanthropic aspect or the charity aspect, but about the responsibility of it and the necessity of it.
Like I did some refugee work in Bangladesh because there's so many Rohingya refugees there, and people don't talk about that, right? There's like almost 2 million refugees living in tents. And from all the medical work that I did there, I think the most satisfying was getting hard-boiled eggs from my restaurant every morning and giving them out to kids.
Yeah.
Right?
It changes
Imagine,
you.
It
you know,
changes
like,
you.
Yeah, and absolutely. You know, when you hear, you know, there's so many different levels of giving from, you know, bring, you know, and this is from my perspective, you know, somebody's cold, you bring them a blanket, you know, but then there's like the next level of giving, you teach them to make a blanket so that they can give other people's blanket, you know, and I have, you know, a little bit of real life experience in terms of being in poverty myself. It sounds like you've been through the mix. I don't know if you have, but myself, it's, you know, it's about breaking thresholds. Right? When you can actually provide for yourself, that's when you're able to be in a position to give, you know, and if you're the person that needs to, you know, maybe get food from the food bank, or you're the one that needs to receive, you know, aid in that regard, you're in a less position to give. So, you know, back into the nature of, you know, what you're talking about in you know, development and sustainability, you know, we're breaking thresholds, right? And, you know, that's an entrepreneurial spirit. I know we've talked about stuff like that, and getting people to be able to succeed and thrive. And, you know, this is what I'm all about in terms of running for mayor of Edmonton, because I see a big problem on our streets. I mean, yourself being an ER physician at the Stollery.
Yep.
And you being a surgeon at the Stollery, you guys get a unique window to, you know, emergency situations, which might be linked to poverty, might be linked to, you know, food insecurity and home insecurity. I myself have lived a food insecure and home insecure life at a younger period of my life. So I do feel a sense of duty, and I sense that from both of you guys, a sense of duty for maybe different reasons in terms of giving back. But, you know, Amelie, sorry to interrupt your show again, but you know, I'm very curious here. I'm trying to learn. I mean, can you maybe discuss what things you might see in the ER room, you know, here in Edmonton, and maybe how poverty, you know, might feed into that, you know, with certain groups. And Dr. Abdullah, you know, was interesting because I know of all of his international efforts that he's done. I phoned him up when I decided to run for mayor and told him why. It was about food insecurity and home insecurity. And I found that his organization, ICChange, here was actually forming a collaborative in Edmonton to do this. So, you know, all in the spirit of bringing people together and discussing the issues here at Edmonton. I mean, if you could give maybe your perspective and maybe have a discussion around that, because I'm very curious about that as well.
For sure. I just want to make a comment though about the teaching somebody to make their own blanket. That's the ideal, right? That's with dignity, and that gives that person their own volition, right? That is the goal. But sometimes I feel, and I can think that will circle back to the emergency room, where our hands are cut off sometimes, right? I'll have teenagers come in telling me they're being abused at home, but because they're 15, 16, well, they can go live in a shelter. The system is not set up to help a lot of children. We define them as children because they're under 17, but the system really, if you're above, I would say 13, 14, let's say 14, 15 to be nice, there's really not a lot of systems in place for them.
Yeah.
It is heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking also to ask the same children, teenagers, over and over again questions where you can't change the outcome. So when you go in and you ask them and they start cursing at you, they're mad, they're angry, it's because they've opened up so many times and nobody's ever changed their situation. I often look around the merge and I think, what percentage of kids are here because of a problem we have created?
Gotcha.
Right? A lot of mental health issues, suicide attempts, assaults, child abuse.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. We do get a unique perspective of, unfortunately, the healthcare system, particularly in a single payer public system like this. The healthcare system ends up being one of the final safety nets that catches people, and fortunately, usually not in the best way, and usually lets them back into that same environment because the systems are not integrated. We don't really reflect on how are they linked, how are they causing one another, how are they fueling one another. I think the when you look at what has gone wrong for somebody to either end up in the emerge or in a shelter, those are very, very hard realities. And to your analogy of if somebody is cold, give them a blanket or teach them to make a blanket. But I think ultimately the question is, how do you raise the temperature so they don't need blankets?
I like it. Yeah.
That's really ultimately, I think, what the conversation needs to be at, because the blanket level discussion is a Band-Aid, right? It will only last so long if we don't look at, okay, how do we link the different problems together and understand the cost of these things, both from a human cost as well as real dollar cost, and then work upstream to try to change those things. When you look at the burden of mental health issues that the youth in this society are struggling with, what are we doing, and why is it that they're presenting to the emergency department? That's not the best place.
Right.
But the investment is not there to support them upstream. We're not trying to address that in a real way. So when our organization was very cautiously trying to understand what is our value addition to work in a Canadian, or more importantly, in an Alberta and Edmonton level, we didn't want to set up another organization to do similar to what many groups are forced to do, which is address build a shelter, hand out food, set up a clinic. Those things, there are many of those things, but what we found was missing was the collaboration and was the ability to look upstream at what has failed to be able to then end up in a hospital context. And then how the hospital system and the medical system is the most costly way to...
That's what I was going to say. It seems like a makeshift way that seems to be the most inefficient way cost-wise and taken away from the already overburdened healthcare system.
Totally. So, I mean, if you look at an average length of stay in Emerge or in a hospital bed of $3,500 a night, and you tell somebody, okay, this person is experiencing houselessness, they come to Emerge to spend a night, you could put them up at the best hotel for $3,500 and have much to spare. That's not an efficient use of public taxpayer dollars to be able to support these people. But the silos that exist and the ability to look more broadly and to look at how food insecurity, houselessness, mental health, all these things have shared problems, and solutions require looking at a more higher level and more upstream solution, or even attempt at mitigation, because I don't know if solution is the right term.
Right.
Then it takes very deliberate collaboration. And so what we tried to do as an organization was to say, okay, we're not wanting to act unless we understand what's being done and we understand what the gaps are. And so we set up our Social Impact Collaborative, which we were very fortunate to have you be part of, to just understand what the context is. And since then, it started to get, now the healthcare system is interested. Okay, well, what did you guys find out during that Social Impact Collaborative? What could potentially be those lessons used for to help create better solutions and better conversation? I think there is a lot of silos in this city. There's a lot of money that maybe is not being utilized in the most strategic way.
Right.
And there's also a lot of, out of sight, out of mind approaches to things. Like if you don't worry about the encampments until they light one of your fancy hotels on fire.
Right.
You don't worry about the encampments until until you have some public event and some government official or some royalty coming to visit. Those are problems. This is a performative attempt at fixing these things, not embracing the reality that you have to really be courageous enough to do the things that are needed and work at a system level.
Right, and in the same vein, this is one of the main reasons I actually got me going, and I mean it, and I've already said this publicly. There was 110 amputations last year, and due to the homelessness situation primarily. I want to know what that cost the Alberta government, given it's $3,500 a bed. I can start doing some math, in certain patient base that are probably malnourished, that are probably poor wound care, that might be addicted and have addiction issues. I want to know what that costs the Alberta government, and I want to, maybe form up some win-win solutions here. And, we hear in the spirit of, collaboration, this is exactly what this is about. I really love the spirit of collaboration. And to our listeners, I call Dr. Abdullah Saleh here a gem. Okay, he's one of the 3 people I call a gem, okay? And if you want to know the other 2, you can contact me directly. But ICChange Canada, I strongly believe in their systematic approach into what they're attempting to do. And I really believe in it from anything I've looked at. And I have a very personal interest in this as well from an inner part of me. But ICChange Canada is something that I'm really looking at very closely, and I'm happy to be a part of. Again, thank you, Dr. Abdullah Saleh, for that very, very concise answer. I know I'm going to have many more questions after this podcast.
Thank you.
Very good.
Kind of reminded me a little bit of reconciliation and how, money is just thrown at this problem, but it actually doesn't trickle down to the kids I'm seeing in emergency. No place to stay, going to shelters, especially our young Indigenous teenage women, girls. Within that identity, there's a cycle because of generational trauma, generational racism, not their fault, and how to break free from that and succeed. And so this idea of just throwing money at a problem, it doesn't fix it.
That's interesting that you say that. So, yeah, I think we do try to solve a lot of things with money. And again, running for mayor, the city's a business and money's a big thing about allocation of funds and where you're going to take tax dollars and accountability for money. And same thing with charities and whatnot. So money is part of the equation. But you bring up a very valid point in terms of, identity and in terms of culture. And even when you want to, house someone that's maybe homeless, there has to be some kind of inclusivity there. Can you comment maybe a little bit in terms of your understanding of that in your own healthcare and how that might have impacted healthcare for you and how you treat your patients?
I feel like sometimes I see these young children and they're being taken away from their families, or they're not taken away because we're trying to keep families together, but that family is really not a family for that child. And parents are struggling too, right? It's not, there's no blame here, right? They're also struggling. They have been raised in this society with, the schooling, and being taken away from their families. And so the generational trauma is real. And why do people use drugs? They're not bad people.
Yeah.
Why do people drink? They're not bad people.
Mm-hmm.
It's to escape a reality.
It's to escape because life is horrible. And we, in general, I should speak for myself, I can't understand that, but I know that it is horrible.
When you get to the point of being food insecure and home insecure, and I believe them to be first, your home is one of the last, or probably the last thing to go. I mean, people probably go hungry before they'll lose their home. I mean, that would be my situation. A lot of things have had to have happened in order for me to get into that spot. These are basic needs. So, what feeds for me, my understanding, we all deal with this. We deal with children. This is a very unique room here today. I mean, you being a pediatric surgeon, peds ER, and myself being a pediatric dentist. But once you get to the point where, you no longer have food or a home, right? A lot of things have had to go wrong. So to me, my understanding of what feeds addictions, even in youth, is trauma, right? It's mental health, and it's poverty, okay? So me, I'm always looking for how do we turn down the taps to this, because it's not all drugs, okay? And that's what I don't see all that. Some of it's addictions, but not all of it is. A lot of these are children, like you were saying, 14 years and younger. If you go to the BNL numbers on Homeward Trust and pull these data, and I need to look a little bit more into this, but as of today, there's 32 unsheltered children under the age of 15 on this list. And for me, looking at and seeing that many unsheltered people that somebody wrote down their name, I'm like, what's going on here? And I don't know if you guys see any of that in your practice. I've seen some poverty in my practice, and I've seen the opposite, where you'll see foster kids or something like that that'll get a good like I'll call it a good foster parent, and I've been able to see them grow up over 10 years and seeing. If you can give kids the tools to thrive and succeed, these are our superstars. And I don't know if you guys have had any of that in your practices as well.
I think the fact that, to your comment about all of us being pediatric specialists, I think it takes a special kind of hopefulness to work with kids. Like I think for all of us we work with kids, one, because probably we're still kids in our hearts, and
totally,
we never grew
right.
up. Something
100%.
Went wrong there, and probably see the innocence and the joy in that.
Yeah.
But your very important question about what the economic aspects of this, and do we see that in our life, in our practice? One of the founding programs that I was involved in that led to ICChange was I worked in Latin America and Ecuador looking at investigating human trafficking and sex trafficking in Latin America. And we would go to brothels and go to different organizations, arms traffickers, drug traffickers, police that were involved, and track down the roots of where these girls and boys who were either trafficked for sex or boys who were hooked on heroin so that they would work plantations and then shipped to different receiving countries like Canada, coming to Vancouver or going to Miami. And so we'd rescue these girls or work with different agencies to bring them out of that life and then try to take them back to their families. And then we take these kids really back to their parents and who say, well, thank you, but we sold them into that life because we have 5 other kids to feed. And so it really shatters your preconceived notions about right and wrong, about what could, as a parent, and as all of us who are parents, me, the latest to join that craziness.
I see it, buddy.
Exactly. That there were some choices made, but I think the fact that a parent would make that decision, consciously putting their kid in that life, it speaks to the economic realities, the poverty, the insecurity, the struggle, the addiction, all that generational trauma, all those things that exist that led them to have to make those decisions. And I think that you're right that without addressing the aspects of the environment that they grow up in, or the culture, or importantly the economic empowerment opportunities for these people, so that so the parents can be stable, so that then the kids are not houseless. 30 some kids on the Homeward Trust list are houseless, and that's a severe underestimation of who's actually
exactly
houseless.
And that's what we assume. People aren't going to be listing. That's the ones you can track. So that's an estimation compared to what we're actually seeing, I think, right?
So that's, I think, where we're all saying that we get our finger on the pulse a little bit from the different perspectives that we work in and emerge, or if you see them after they get injured in a gang or in a accidental injury or a dog, attack, very unfortunate realities that we see around us. But how do you address that? It's not by banning dogs. It doesn't work. It's not by banning drugs. That's not how these things work.
No.
You have to be able to invest not just in a harm reduction approach, which I think we see from the Vancouver example, the perils of hyper liberalization of certain substances, and then the sequelae of that. I think we have to look at more targeted and wraparound services for these people, that they cannot be seeking care at a food bank, but then not be able to know where their house is going to be, or have to retell their story and give their data 10 times to different social services agencies.
For data collection,
For re-registering, for reliving that humiliation, often with very little dignity left. And I think you brought up dignity earlier. I think there is such an undignified process that we put people through, even registering or coming to the emergency department by the time you're there, because you can't go anywhere else and your kids is sick and now you can't afford a house. These are such societal imperatives for us to wake up to and pay attention to. Amen. Because and those are the basics of what we do then as a society to combat all the other existential threats: climate change, the inequality, conflict, and the complex issues of overcrowding and population, all that, and pollution. Fundamentally comes to stabilizing some of these things so that people are not, being in an infertile environment that then leads to all these problems.
Right, and that's how I see it. I think we think of as society linearly, and it's not an A to B to C, and you cut this off and solution. And hopefully you guys can edit this out, but it's a whole ball of shit, is from what I see. And you have to hit things from different angles. And, I've been around the world myself, and, we're all problem solvers. We're in our trades. I mean, I fill teeth. I mean, you deal with ERs. You're fixing them at if me or Dr. Rahman can't fix them, we send them your way. But, it hits from a whole bunch of different angles. But the thing is I think we have to work on the things that we know. So you know better, you have to do better. And, your perspective in finding real solutions to real world problems and bringing that home to Edmonton is very, I'm invigorated, brother. So, I'm happy to have you guys on the show. I really wanted to continue this discussion with both of you guys again. There's never enough time. I learned a lot today on today's podcast.
Can I make a plug really quick?
Absolutely, please do.
Just because you were talking about the tech. So at Islamic Family, we are doing counseling for bringing inmates who are now released into population, like helping them. Yeah. We built a new platform for social workers. I don't know if you've heard about it. So it's the same, all the information is there for every single social worker, and it's in different languages, and not just, hey, here's the phone call, and hey, that number is disconnected, right? Other ways to reach people and stuff. So I think they're great innovative companies out there nonprofits working together. So
there is hope for sure. Yeah. I think, with the work that Islamic Family is doing, and, I've had a chance to both visit and to meet with Omar and the team, and including inviting, they were part of the Social Impact Collaborative that we held, and were integral to that conversation, and even building and raising my awareness of the problems with the identifiers and the information sharing and all that. Earlier, there was a guest here, Robert Kempery, that was talking about one of the initiatives that he was involved in, that I heard about from the previous chief medical officer of health here. And he was a great mentor to all of us in medical school. He spoke about the importance of giving an identity, an ID card to the homeless and to those that don't have any kind of form of identity, because if you don't have that, you cannot access all the social services that you need. Because one of the first questions that they ask you is, what's your ID number? And you're like, well, okay, that's part of the problem. That I don't have that.
That's part of the problem.
That's why I'm here. And so then the system, I think, is myopic in that it's built very rigidly. Mm-hmm. And then these people who are extremely vulnerable are not able to navigate that. So I think the work that Islamic Family is doing is incredibly, not just insightful, but it's timely, it's cutting edge, and I think it will revolutionize the sector. And we're very excited to be working with that group.
As part of the collaborative.
As part of the collaborative.
As part of the collaborative. And any outreach groups here in Edmonton, I would assume, like the collaborative led here by ICChange, being a part of the collaborative. I think that's really what we got to do. We got to come together, right? And it's part of my slogan, let's shine brighter together. And, so if you like to donate to Islamic Family Social Service, okay, very good. Or ICChange. And might I mention that there's a gala April 12th. I'll be doing the live auction there once again. It's a big passion of mine. Please support. We'll include the websites as a part of this podcast, and I look forward to discussing with you guys together. But that's all the time we have for our podcast today. And hope to continue the discussion. It's time to shine, Edmonton. Let's shine brighter together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, there's so much more to talk about.
I know.
I had a list.
Organic, man.
We only did one topic.
I know. Totally.
The time has come. The time is now. It's time. It's time to shine. It's time to shine, Edmonton. Let's shine together. Let's all shine bright in all kinds of weather. Time to shine, Edmonton. Let's shine together. Let's all shine bright in all kinds of weather.